Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to argue, explain, or beg. It's to step back and let life do the work. When you let him go, you're not punishing him, you're protecting your peace. Karma has a way of revealing the truth, and the moment he finally realizes what he lost, it will be too late to change anything. Your freedom becomes the loudest message he'll ever hear. Your freedom is more powerful than any argument, any explanation, or any attempt to make him see the truth. When you finally release someone who didn't value you, what you are really doing is reclaiming your energy, your time, and your emotional peace. Most people underestimate the impact of simply stepping back because we live in a culture that glorifies drama, confrontation, and proving a point. But the quiet act of letting go, of living fully without him, sends a far stronger signal than any words ever could. Freedom is magnetic, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. It communicates value in a way that confrontation never will. When you continue to engage with someone who doesn't appreciate you, your presence, your patience, and your attention become like a safety net he knows will always catch him. That safety net keeps him from seeing the reality of his own behavior. It keeps him from feeling the consequences of his choices because he doesn't have to. But the moment you claim your freedom, that safety net disappears. Suddenly, he's left to navigate life without the certainty of your availability, without the emotional support he once took for granted. That's when absence starts to speak. Absence has a language all its own, one that men rarely understand until it's too late. While you're walking away, focusing on your goals, nurturing your happiness, and building a life you love, you're sending a message far more profound than words ever could. I am whole without you, and I won't tolerate anything less than respect and reciprocity. That statement doesn't need to be articulated. It's felt, it's seen in your posture, in your glow, in the calm way you move through the world without seeking validation from him. It's a quiet but undeniable declaration that your peace is not for negotiation. Men rarely internalize lessons when you're in their orbit. They may hear you, but hearing isn't the same as understanding. They may feel guilty, but guilt is temporary when comfort is still available. Freedom removes the comfort entirely. Your life becomes a mirror reflecting everything he ignored or undervalued. Your independence, your happiness, your growth, it all highlights the gap between what he had and what he will never have again. And that realization is often the first true moment of self-awareness he experiences. Your freedom also forces him to confront the fact that you weren't dependent on him. You didn't stay because you couldn't live without him. You stayed because you chose him, because you saw potential, because you gave willingly. When you step away, that choice disappears. The control he once felt over your attention and affection evaporates, leaving him with the truth he has long avoided. Your love and presence were gifts, not entitlements. And when a man realizes that, the sting of regret begins to build naturally. What makes freedom so powerful is that it's authentic. It's not motivated by revenge, jealousy, or spite. It's motivated by clarity and self-respect. When you detach without chaos, without begging, without trying to prove yourself, you become a force of calm inevitability. Men are often confronted with loss only when it affects them personally, and your freedom ensures it will affect him silently, profoundly, and permanently. Ultimately, your freedom teaches what words never could: that you are whole, that your peace matters more than his approval, and that you are capable of walking away without looking back. It forces him to reckon with his choices in a way that lectures and arguments never could. Your absence becomes a living testament to your worth, and in that absence, he begins to understand, slowly and painfully, what he lost. Freedom isn't just leaving, it's the most powerful message of all, delivered without a single word. Letting go isn't about giving up or admitting defeat. It's about trusting life to handle the consequences naturally. Too often, we convince ourselves that we need to stay to fight, to prove a point, or to make someone realize what they're missing. We believe that if we explain ourselves enough, send enough messages, or show enough effort, the other person will finally wake up and see our value. But the truth is, trying to force recognition rarely works. People only understand lessons when they experience them for themselves, and sometimes the most powerful lesson is the one life delivers without our interference. That's where letting go becomes an act of faith, not in him, but in the natural balance of the world. Karma isn't about punishment, it's about cause and effect. It's about the reality that the energy we put out into the world eventually comes back to us, whether we see it or not. When someone has been careless with your time, your emotions, or your presence, life has a way of revealing the consequences of those choices. And the more you try to orchestrate it, the less authentic the lesson becomes. Letting go allows karma to operate without distortion. It's like stepping aside and letting the universe show him the truth in a way that can't be argued with. The hardest part for many women is relinquishing control. We want to fix the situation, we want him to realize immediately, and we want the recognition we feel we deserve. But when you let go, you remove yourself from the need to control the outcome. You stop trying to manipulate his realization or orchestrate regret. Instead, you step into a space of calm certainty, focusing on your own life, your own growth, and your own happiness. That shift in focus is transformative because it redirects your energy from someone else's mistakes to your own empowerment. Letting go also teaches him a subtle but profound lesson. Absence highlights value in ways presence never could. While you were accessible, patient, and forgiving, he may have assumed you would always be there. He may have believed your care and effort were constants, unearned and unappreciated. But once you step away, the comfort of your presence disappears. Suddenly, he experiences the gap between what he had and what he allowed to slip away. That gap doesn't need to be explained. It doesn't need to be justified. It simply exists, and he has no choice but to confront it. Trusting life to deliver the lesson doesn't mean you're passive or indifferent. It means you are wise enough to recognize that some things cannot be taught through words or effort. They can only be realized through experience. Your role isn't to ensure he regrets, isn't to send indirect messages, and isn't to create a scenario that forces understanding. Your role is to prioritize your peace, your growth, and your boundaries, and to let the natural consequences of his actions unfold. When a man begins to feel the weight of his own choices, the realization hits harder than any argument or confrontation could. Karma works quietly, steadily, and relentlessly. It doesn't hurry, it doesn't negotiate, and it doesn't require your interference to make the truth unavoidable. By stepping back and letting go, you allow life to handle what you can't force. And when he finally encounters the truth, it will be authentic, undeniable, and entirely of his own making. In the end, letting go isn't about waiting for revenge or validation. It's about living in alignment with your own value while trusting that the universe has a way of delivering consequences. You walk away, you focus on your growth, and life naturally reflects back the imbalance he created. The moment he realizes what he lost, it will be too late to change, because by then you will already be thriving, whole, and untouchable in the way he once overlooked. His regret is never truly your responsibility. It's easy to feel tempted to try to make him understand, to teach him a lesson, or to orchestrate a moment where he realizes what he lost. We think that if we explain ourselves enough, if we demonstrate our worth one more time, or if we create the perfect scenario, he will finally wake up. But the truth is, regret is a product of self-reflection, and self-reflection can't be forced. It comes from confronting one's own choices and their consequences, and that process is entirely his to experience. No amount of your energy, effort, or argument can make someone feel the lessons they aren't ready to feel. When you stop trying to be responsible for his emotions, a shift occurs. You stop over-explaining, over-justifying, and overextending yourself emotionally. You stop holding the weight of his understanding on your shoulders. That in itself is liberating because it allows you to reclaim the energy that was being drained by trying to control a situation you never could. His regret is a reflection of his actions, not of your efforts. The sooner you realize this, the sooner you can stop tying your peace to his realization and start focusing on your own growth. Men often don't recognize the value of what they had until it's gone, but that recognition is always internal. It happens in quiet moments when they are alone with their thoughts, not when you are present to explain, confront, or justify. By stepping back, you remove the distractions, the excuses, and the safety net that allowed him to overlook you in the first place. Your absence becomes a mirror reflecting the reality of his choices. The contrast between what he took for granted and the life he's now faced with hits harder because you are no longer there to cushion the blow. The power of stepping away lies in clarity. When you are calm, composed, and unapologetically focused on yourself, it communicates more than any conversation ever could. It demonstrates that you are whole, that your peace matters, and that your value is not up for debate. It removes any illusion of dependence or accessibility that he might have relied on. He is forced to reckon with the truth on his own, and that confrontation is what leads to genuine regret. The lessons he learns are no longer influenced by manipulation, persuasion, or external pressure. They are internal, personal, and unavoidable. It's also a reminder that you cannot control how or when someone realizes their mistakes. He may never come back, he may never apologize, and he may never fully comprehend what he lost. That's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of his choices. Your responsibility is not to ensure he regrets. It is to ensure that you honor yourself, your boundaries, and your peace. When you detach with dignity, you show strength and maturity, which only amplifies the contrast between your calm growth and the chaos of what he left behind. Walking away without trying to force regret also protects your emotional energy. Chasing after someone who doesn't see your value keeps you trapped in a cycle of disappointment and frustration. By stepping back and letting him face his own reality, you stop giving him control over your happiness. You redirect that power toward yourself, toward your growth, and toward the life you deserve. Regret, when it comes, will be his lesson, not your burden. Ultimately, his regret is inevitable if he truly valued what he had, but it will be authentic only if it arises from his own awareness, not from anything you manufactured. By releasing the need to make him feel it, you empower yourself. You focus on living fully, thriving, and honoring your worth. And when the truth of his loss finally hits, it will be loud, undeniable, and entirely of his own making. Proof that sometimes the most powerful lessons are the ones we allow life to teach without interference. Detachment has a way of forcing clarity in ways words and arguments never can. When a man has constant access to your time, energy, and emotional presence, he rarely stops to consider the value he might be overlooking. Familiarity breeds comfort, and comfort often breeds complacency. He may assume that your patience, kindness, or loyalty is something he will always have, and that assumption prevents him from seeing what he's taking for granted. But when you step back, when you detach emotionally and physically, that assumption is shattered. Suddenly, he is faced with the reality that what he once had is no longer available. That absence creates a space in which he can finally confront the truth of his actions. Men often fail to recognize value until it's gone. While you were present, patient, and giving, he may have dismissed your efforts or taken them lightly, thinking that your love, support, or attention were constants. Detachment interrupts that pattern. By removing yourself from the dynamic, you prevent him from continuing in the illusion that your presence is guaranteed. The contrast between what he had and what he now lacks becomes impossible to ignore. It's in that contrast that clarity begins to emerge. He starts to see the moments he misstepped, the chances he wasted, and the depth of what he lost, all without you ever needing to point it out. Detachment also creates a mirror in which he can reflect on his behavior. When you stop trying to manage his feelings, stop chasing validation, and stop giving explanations, he is left with only himself. Alone with his thoughts, he begins to replay interactions, choices, and missed opportunities. That reflection often leads to realizations he would never have reached while you were still providing the emotional labor that masked his shortcomings. The clarity that detachment brings isn't force. It arises naturally when someone is faced with the reality of their own actions. Another aspect of detachment is that it establishes your boundaries and communicates your self-worth without confrontation. Men often respond to absence because it signals that your energy, time, and presence are finite. It's not about punishment, it's about demonstrating that your life continues, your happiness is intact, and your value is independent of their recognition. That message hits harder than any argument or explanation ever could. Detachment is a demonstration of strength, dignity, and maturity, all of which demand reflection. By withdrawing, you also allow yourself the space to grow, heal, and thrive. When you stop focusing on convincing him of your worth or correcting his misconceptions, you redirect that energy toward your own life. Your confidence, peace, and success become tangible reminders of what he lost. Karma and consequence operate quietly, but the human mind is naturally drawn to gaps and contrasts. When he witnesses your detachment, your calm composure, and your thriving life, it forces him to acknowledge the gap between what he had and what he no longer has access to. That acknowledgement is the core of clarity. The power of detachment lies in timing as well. Men rarely understand the weight of loss in the moment of separation. It emerges gradually as they experience life without your presence and without your emotional support. The longer they face the absence, the more stark the realization becomes. Detachment gives them the opportunity to see patterns they ignored, moments they dismissed, and the true value of the connection they had. Ultimately, detachment forces clarity because it removes the distractions, the excuses, and the emotional safety net that allowed him to overlook your worth. By stepping back, you create the conditions for him to see reality clearly, without interference or manipulation. He is left to confront the truth of his actions on his own, and that confrontation often leads to a deeper, more lasting understanding than anything you could have explained or argued. Your calm withdrawal becomes the most powerful teacher, revealing the reality of loss in the clearest, most undeniable way. Growth is the ultimate response to someone who failed to see your value. While it can be tempting to try to teach him a lesson, to prove a point, or to orchestrate a moment of regret, true power comes from focusing entirely on your own evolution. By redirecting your energy toward your own life, your own happiness, and your own goals, you create a living testament to your worth, one that speaks far louder than any words, arguments, or confrontations ever could. Growth is the silent but undeniable proof of everything he overlooked, and it forces reflection without you needing to intervene. When you choose to invest in yourself rather than in his recognition, you are reclaiming authority over your emotional energy. The time you once spent explaining, defending, or chasing him is now directed toward things that expand your life, your career, your passions, your friendships, and your well-being. That redirection not only strengthens you internally, but also sends a powerful message externally. You are whole, thriving, and independent. Men often fail to appreciate these qualities when they are available to them, But when they witness them from a distance, the impact is undeniable. Growth creates contrast, the stark difference between the energy he once dismissed and the life you now embody. Growth also naturally eliminates the need for manipulation. You don't need to provoke jealousy, send subtle messages, or orchestrate moments to make him feel regret. When you evolve and flourish, your life itself becomes a mirror of what he lost. He begins to notice, not because you drew his attention intentionally, but because the changes in your life are obvious, tangible, and inspiring. Every step forward you take is a reminder of the energy he didn't nurture, the love he didn't appreciate, and the opportunities he squandered. Karma, in essence, works quietly alongside your growth, amplifying the consequences of his choices without your involvement. Another critical aspect of growth is the transformation of self-perception. As you focus on yourself, you begin to see your value with clarity. You stop seeking validation from someone who didn't provide it, and instead recognize that your worth is inherent and unshakable. That self-awareness radiates outward, affecting every interaction and every relationship you have. Men are drawn to confidence and self-assuredness, but they are often confronted with it too late. By the time he realizes what he lost, you are no longer waiting for his acknowledgement or attempting to reconcile. You are already living at a level he cannot access. Growth is also empowering because it allows you to detach from resentment and lingering attachment. Focusing on your own progress shifts the emotional narrative. Instead of obsessing over what he didn't do, you redirect your energy toward what you can achieve, who you can become, and how you can create a life that aligns with your values. That shift is transformative, not only for your life, but also in the way it forces him to reckon with the gap between who you were for him and who you've become without him. Ultimately, the combination of personal evolution, emotional detachment, and tangible success creates a form of natural karma. He doesn't need to be taught a lesson, he experiences it. Each step you take forward, each success you achieve, each moment of peace you embody, is a reminder of the connection he took for granted. The realization hits harder because it comes from life itself, not from manipulation or confrontation. Growth ensures that the impact is authentic, unavoidable, and lasting. By committing to your growth, you reclaim your power, elevate your life, and leave him with the undeniable truth. The love, patience, and effort he disregarded were gifts, and now they are fully invested in yourself. Your evolution becomes the loudest statement of all, showing him what he lost, what he cannot regain, and what you always deserved. It is through this growth that karma quietly and efficiently delivers its lesson, reflecting back the consequences of his actions in a way that is real, profound, and irreversible. The awakening he experiences always comes after your peace, never during your turmoil. Men rarely recognize the value of someone while they are still accessible, still hoping, still giving. It's only when you step away, when your energy is calm and your life is thriving without him, that the realization hits. By the time he understands what he lost, you have already moved forward, and that is what makes the regret so sharp. Your peace becomes the most powerful message, louder than any confrontation, argument, or explanation could ever be. It communicates worth, strength, and independence without a single word. When you maintain your calm and continue to prioritize yourself, he begins to notice the life he no longer influences. He sees your confidence, your growth, and your joy, and he realizes that you are untouchable in the ways he once assumed he controlled. Men often mistake persistence or presence for necessity, but peace removes that illusion. When you are content and thriving without needing him to validate your worth, it disrupts the narrative he had built. The reality of your independence forces him to confront the fact that you were never dependent on him, you were always whole. Your peace also forces him to face the consequences of his own choices. While you were patient, forgiving, and emotionally available, he may have assumed your love and attention were constants. He could overlook your value, dismiss your feelings, and take your efforts for granted. But when you step back, the absence of those constants becomes impossible to ignore. Your calm detachment highlights the gap between what he had and what he allowed to slip away. It is in that silence, that space, and that unwavering composure that he begins to recognize the gravity of his mistakes. Another important aspect is timing. Regret rarely appears in the moment of departure. It grows quietly as he experiences life without your presence, without your emotional support, and without the connection he once relied on. The longer he faces that absence, the sharper the realization becomes. By the time he internalizes the loss, you are already flourishing. Your life is moving forward, your happiness is intact, and your boundaries are solid. That contrast between your calm, thriving existence and his lack of access to it intensifies the depth of regret. Peace also serves as a reflection of self-worth. When you maintain it, you demonstrate that your life and happiness are not contingent on his recognition or validation. This is a profound lesson for him because it reveals that your love and presence were always a choice, not a requirement. The clarity of your boundaries, your focus, and your serenity makes him confront the truth he previously ignored. He realizes that the window of influence he had over you is closed, and there is no way to turn back time. Ultimately, the awakening he experiences is the result of your intentional focus on yourself. It is your growth, your calm, and your independence that deliver the lesson he never took the time to learn while you were present. By the time he understands the loss, you are untouchable not because you wanted to punish him, but because you chose to prioritize your life and your happiness above all else. Your peace becomes the undeniable, inescapable truth. The connection he ignored, the efforts he dismissed, and the love he took for granted are no longer available, and nothing he can do now can change that reality. In the end, his awakening serves as confirmation of your strength and clarity. The regret that surfaces is entirely a byproduct of your calm and composed movement forward. It is proof that the most powerful way to teach someone the value of what they lost is not through confrontation or explanation, but through your unwavering commitment to your own peace, happiness, and growth. By the time he fully grasps it, you have already proven the lesson silently, irreversibly, and with undeniable clarity. The truth is, letting go isn't about revenge or forcing him to see your worth. It's about reclaiming your peace, your growth, and your life. When you step back, remain calm, and focus on yourself, karma naturally delivers the lesson he needs to learn. By the time he realizes what he lost, you will already be thriving, independent, and untouchable. Your freedom and peace become the loudest message of all, proving that the only validation you need comes from within.